The Smithsonian and the Presidency is another decent episode of This Is America, Charlie Brown. Not my favourite, and I feel like the opening actually could have been the last episode. Not that I've seen the last episode, I have one more to go, but at the beginning of this episode, the seventh episode, and they are, of course, the Smithsonian viewing these artifacts, and we get so many little snippets of historical information, and history comes to life for brief seconds as they view these different beautifully animated exhibits, and it touches on the names of Snoopy and Charlie Brown for Apollo 10, which I thought was really good fun. There's a bit of information about the birth of comic strips, or when comic strips became popular, and it uses a Charlie Brown comic strip as an example, which I just thought was so charming. And having all of that information, I thought, meant it would have been a good final episode, but I guess they're doing things chronologically. So we'll see what happens in the final episode. But this one focuses on several presidents, as one might expect, including Lincoln and Roosevelt. We have the cemetery and Gettysburg, and how Yosemite Park came to be, which I thought was really fascinating. It also looks at the Depression. We have some live action footage. I never knew the term or where the term breadline came from, and it turns out it was an actual line that people would stand in to wait for bread when they had no money for any food. Although it does seem a bit peculiar that we'd use that term in the UK, because we wouldn't call it a line, we'd call it a queue. So I don't know if the origin's exactly the same in the UK to be on the bread line, but certainly I found that to be very fascinating, and it did taught me quite a few things. Very well put together, very well animated. I like that the characters are actually taking part in the stories, which is not always the case with This Is America. For example, we have Charlie Brown and Linus talking with President Lincoln, which helps to bring the story to life and gives it a much more entertaining narrative structure. Very well animated, of course. Great pacing. It got to the point pretty quickly after we had that introduction. There is a lot of information in this. For example, to compare it to the one with the Wright brothers, for example, while informative, it wasn't fact after fact after fact. It was more of an immersive experience with the narrative. But this one does seem to be fact after fact, but in a way that's really fascinating. And the information, although quick, is presented in a way that I think is quite easy to follow. Definitely an episode that I enjoyed, which is usually the case. Keen to see what they do for the final episode. But for now, I definitely enjoyed the Smithsonian and the Presidency.